I'm Malaya. I live in Corvallis, and I studied zoology and fisheries and wildlife science at Oregon State University. I'm a Filipina climate justice activist and a vegan. Veganism, a global social justice movement. The role of animal agriculture in the climate crisis, species extinction crisis, and pandemics is often ignored, although it is the underlying cause. 10,000 years ago, 99% of zoomass was wild animals. Today, humans and the animals that we use as food make up 98% of the zoomass. Animal agriculture has devastated biodiversity. Today, 60% of mammals on Earth are livestock, 36% are humans, and only 4% are wild mammals. Similarly, 70% of the birds on Earth are poultry, and 30% are wild birds. Animal agriculture is the #1 cause of deforestation and habitat destruction, ocean dead zones, water scarcity and freshwater pollution, and pandemics. Greenhouse gas emissions from the animal agriculture industry are greater than that of our entire global transportation system. So in short, there is no such thing as sustainable animal agriculture. Animal agriculture oppresses people of color and violates human rights. Indigenous people in the Americas were pushed off their lands to make room for grazing cows and growing feed for pigs and chickens. In other places where white people introduced cows, native ecosystems and indigenous food systems were dramatically altered. 91% of the destruction of the Amazon rainforest is to meet the global demand for animal feed and beef exports, and is responsible for the genocide of indigenous people. Animal agriculture oppresses people of color and violates human rights in many other ways. Workers in factory farms and slaughterhouses are typically low-income people of color, and they experience brutal and unsanitary working conditions, where they develop PTSD and are exposed to COVID-19 and other diseases. Slaves are traded and sold for labor on commercial fishing operations worldwide. And there is also environmental racism, as factory farms are located in low-income communities of color, where they contaminated groundwater, soil, and air, and lead to high rates of respiratory disorders, birth defects, cancers, and other conditions. Preventing some of the worst effects of the climate crisis and social breakdown would require not just changes in our lifestyle, food system, and transportation system, but a change in our perspective and values. The problem lies in not just how we treat other species of animals, but how we view them and our relationship with our planet. Speciesism is valuing individuals less on the basis of their species. Speciesism is a form of oppression, like racism, ableism, and sexism. And just as there are other forms of privilege, like white privilege and male privilege, there is also human privilege. Privilege is invisible to those who have it. Racism and speciesism intersect. Many of the things that we do to animals today have been done to people of color and were once considered acceptable. So, human zoos existed in the early 20th century. People of color, mainly Africans and Filipinos, were kidnapped from their homes and put on display in these human zoos for entertainment for white people. And also, it was widely held belief during that time among white people that it was good to bring their children to these zoos to teach their children about other cultures of humans. So there are many other ways that racism and speciesism intersect. Experiments were performed on people of color and indigenous people without informed consent. And also, Black slaves in the Americas were considered property, bought and sold, exploited for their labor, and were treated in many other ways that animals who are exploited in the animal agriculture industry are treated. And also, comparisons to non-human animals have been used to oppress people of color. Speciesism is a form of ableism. Speciesism is at its core ableist because non-human animals are deemed inferior because of their different abilities and body forms. Denying people with disabilities reproductive freedom, forcibly sterilizing them, and separating children from their parents, keeping them in captivity, and denying them autonomy and their most basic rights. Speciesism is a form of ableism. Similar to people with disabilities, animals are valued by society only according to what they can produce for society and not valued for who they are. And these are photos of live animal keychains sold in markets in China. In the next slide, I'll show you a video of chick culling, which is an example of speciesism and ableism and is a standard practice in the egg industry, including in the suppliers of backyard hens. In chick culling, because baby male chicks are not able to lay eggs, they're killed shortly after they hatch. And common ways that they're killed is that they're suffocated, gassed, and in the United States, they're commonly ground alive in macerators. Veganism is a starting point for addressing social inequality and environmental justice. As we shift away from animal agriculture, the world will be reforested. With a plant-based food system, global farmland will be reduced by 75%, freeing up land mass the size of Australia, China, the European Union, and the United States combined. We can feed more humans with a plant-based food system also. Veganism is a fast-growing global grassroots social justice movement. Veganism is anti-oppression, and it's about climate justice, and also about the right that everyone has to be free and not be harmed. And so there's this misconception that veganism is a lifestyle like for elite people, but actually the majority of US vegans are low income and earn less than $30,000 a year. And there are a lot of vegans of color. In fact, African Americans are the fastest growing vegan demographic. And veganism also provides practical solutions for communities in response to government inaction on the climate crisis. So many places in Brazil have started vegan school lunch programs to combat water scarcity, Amazon rainforest destruction, childhood obesity, and protect animal rights. So the animal rights movement and veganism is a global movement. And so here's a photo of an animal liberation march in Taiwan, and also in the Philippines, an animal rights protest in Korea, Mexico City, and Colombia. Veganism is a fast-growing social justice movement led by youth vegan climate justice activists. For more information, be sure to visit the Food Empowerment Project for information on food justice, veganism, and eating plant-based. And also watch Cowspiracy on Netflix and Dominion on YouTube.